"I want you to be mine," she said quietly, but with a weight that silenced the room. Malik Carter froze. His hand still rested on the raised lid of the grand Bechstein piano, the last vibration of the freshly tuned middle C fading under his palm. He didn't turn right away, not because he didn't hear her, but because he wasn't sure if she meant the piano or him. The room around him was drenched in late afternoon light, warm and golden through the tall bay windows of the Williams estate. Mahogany floors, cream-colored walls, and a chandelier overhead that probably cost more than his truck. The space was elegant, old money, but also strangely quiet, like a stage waiting for the cue. When he finally turned, Maya Williams was standing in the doorway, barefoot on polished wood, one hand resting gently against the frame. She wore a thin-strapped silk dress that hugged her curves with effortless confidence. The deep navy fabric clung to her slender waist and fell smoothly over her hips, catching the light with every breath she took. Her dark brown hair tumbled over one shoulder, a few strands brushing her collarbone. No jewelry, no smile, just that one line, hanging between them like an unresolved chord. Malik's breath caught, just for a second. She was striking elegant, sensual, radiant in the most unexpected way. And she was alone. No housekeeper, no dog, no echo of footsteps elsewhere in the house. Just her. And him. That thought stirred something in his chest he hadn't invited. He swallowed it down quickly, straightening his shoulders. "Focus, man. You're here for the piano." He cleared his throat, careful to keep his tone professional. "You mean the piano?" Maya's gaze didn't waver. "I meant what I said." He looked back at the keys. Ivory, yellowed slightly with age, now pristine and humming with new life. The kind of life only someone like Malik could restore patiently, precisely. "It's fully tuned now," he said. "I replaced the bass dampers and reset the action. You should be good for another 10 years if no one slams the lid again." She stepped closer, her voice lower now. "You know, it's been a long time since a man touched something in this house and actually made it better." He blinked. Just fix instruments." Her lips curled into something between a smile and a dare. "Is that all you fix, Mr. Carter?" Malik rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly aware of how warm the room had gotten. "It's what I'm trained for." She tilted her head, eyes trailing briefly down his arms, then back up to meet his startled gaze. "You have the hands of someone who doesn't just fix things, someone who listens before he touches." He cleared his throat again, shifting on his feet. "Ma'am, Maya," she corrected gently, then added, with a teasing edge, "unless you prefer calling me ma'am. Some men do." He chuckled, a short, unsure sound. "Maya, right. That's better," she said, walking slowly past him, letting her dress whisper against the air between them. "You're tense. I'm not used to compliments on the job. Then I'm sorry for the world you've worked in." She turned, standing just beside the piano now. "But for the record, I wasn't just complimenting your work." He said nothing, just gently closed the lid of the Bechstein and stepped back. "I should go," he said. "Don't want to be late for my next client." "Do you really have another appointment?" she asked, eyebrows raised. He hesitated. "I might." Maya smiled, soft and knowing. "You don't have to be afraid of me, Malik." "I'm not afraid," he replied more quickly than he meant to. She leaned her hip lightly against the piano, arms folded. "Then why are you backing away? Give Maya a like if you believe that some hearts, though broken, still dare to love again." "Before we continue the story, tell me, where are you watching this video from? Who knows, someone near you might be watching the very same video right now." He didn't answer. He only reached for the envelope she was holding out. "Payment, plus a little extra," she said, brushing her fingers just slightly against his as he took it. "In case you ever want to come back." He gave a quiet nod, then walked with measured steps toward the door. She followed behind, bare feet barely making a sound. As he opened the door and stepped onto the porch, the low sun spilled amber light across the drive. He paused on the threshold. Behind him, her voice came again, gentler now. "You know, Malik, the piano wasn't the only thing in this house that was out of tune." That night, in his modest apartment above the barber shop on Glenwood Avenue, Malik didn't turn on the television. He didn't pull out the work order ledger. He just sat on the edge of the bed, the smell of wood polish still on his hands, and stared at the untouched piano key he kept on his nightstand, a souvenir from a Steinway he salvaged at 19. He didn't know why he'd taken it then, just that it felt like a promise, something to come back to. Now, for the first time in years, he wondered if maybe that promise had just found a voice. He picked up his phone, opened his messages, and hovered over her contact. He didn't type anything, but he didn't delete the number either. The next morning came slower than usual. Malik stood in his kitchen, nursing a cup of black coffee, the same brand he'd used for years. Nothing about the brew was new, but something in the silence tasted different. He glanced toward the small window that overlooked Glenwood Avenue, where traffic crawled and people walked their dogs like any other Thursday. The normalcy of it irritated him in a way he couldn't explain. He replayed her voice in his head again. "You don't have to be afraid of me." But it wasn't fear. At least, not the kind you name. It was the kind that simmers low, like heat in a pan you forgot to turn off, slowly warping the bottom of everything. He picked up his phone. Still no new messages. Still the same name in his contacts, Maya Williams. He hadn't saved it with an emoji or a nickname, just her name. That, somehow, felt more dangerous than anything. He set the mug down, pulled on his boots, and grabbed his tool bag. Routine was good. Routine kept him grounded. His next job was just a few blocks over, a small duplex in need of a keybed rewire on an old upright piano. Simple work. Nothing emotional. Nothing intimate. By 11, he was crouched in a narrow living room, the scent of cat hair and carpet powder clinging to the air. An elderly woman shuffled by behind him, humming something tuneless. This was his rhythm. Anonymous spaces, one job to the next. No questions, no gray areas. Until he found the folded piece of paper tucked under his toolkit. He stared at it for a moment before opening it. It was a note clearly slipped in after he'd packed up at Maya's place. The handwriting was slanted, neat, and unmistakably hers. For when silence isn't enough, no name, no number, just that line. But it knocked the breath out of him more than her voice had. He finished the job, got paid in cash, and returned to his truck without saying more than a dozen words. But all afternoon, his hands moved with less precision. He dropped his screwdriver twice, miscounted a pin setting, things he hadn't done since his first year on the job. By 4:30, he gave up pretending he wasn't distracted. He called it a day and drove to his mother's house. Ruth Carter lived on the south edge of the city. In a modest one-story with peeling trim and roses, she still pruned herself. She opened the door before he knocked, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "You look like your brain didn't finish its morning coffee," she said. Malik cracked a smile. "That obvious?" She moved aside. "When it's about a woman, yes." He stepped inside, the familiar creak of floorboards greeting his boots. The air smelled like cornbread and lemon cleaner. He sat at the old dining table while she poured sweet tea. "There's a woman," he said simply. "I figured," Ruth said, sitting across from him. "She rich?" He blinked. "What makes you say that?" "Because the only time you get this quiet is when you feel like you don't belong in someone's house. Usually means their walls are too white and their candles are too expensive." Malik let out a short laugh. "Yeah, that about sums it up." Ruth sipped her tea. "She kind?" He nodded. "Too kind. It's complicated." Ruth raised an eyebrow. "Does she see you?" That made him pause. "She sees something," he admitted. "I don't know what yet, but it's not the toolbox." Ugh. Ruth leaned back, her gaze steady. "Then maybe she's worth more than what's in her house." He didn't respond. Not yet. That night, Malik drove home slower than usual. The city lights blurred along the windshield like streaks of paint someone hadn't finished brushing in. When he pulled into his parking space, he sat there, engine ticking in the cool air, unsure whether to go inside or go back. Instead, he reached for the folded note again, reread it, and this time, allowed a half smile. Friday came with rain. He filled it with work, wiring checks, and pedal repairs. He avoided thinking about Maya, but the silence between jobs made her echo louder. By late afternoon, his phone buzzed. "Maya we. You still fixing, or just hiding?" He stared at the message, then typed, "Fixing, not hiding. Why?" Her reply came fast. "Because I've got a bottle of wine, a kitchen full of takeout, and a piano that misses you." He read it 3 times. "Dinner," he replied. Just dinner. For now, she wrote. An hour later, he stood on her porch again. This time, the light over the doorway was on, casting a soft amber glow over the dark wood. He could hear faint music playing inside something jazzy, old, with a heartbeat slow enough to feel intentional. When Maya opened the door, she was barefoot again, this time in jeans and an oversized sweater, hair loose around her shoulders, still beautiful, still dangerous. "Hey," she said, stepping aside. Malik stepped in, water dripping from his coat. "Storm caught me. I've got towels and bourbon. You can pick which one warms you faster." He raised a brow. "You always this welcoming to your repairmen? Only the ones who tune more than just strings." He chuckled, nervous. "You're gonna get me fired." She looked at him, eyes steady. "You walked away the other day like I scared you. Did I?" "No," he said after a beat. "You unsettled me. That's different." "Is it?" He met her chaze. "Yeah, one's a warning. The other's a reason to stay curious." She smiled, turned, and walked toward the kitchen. "Good. Then be curious, Mr. Carter. I made room for it." He stood in the middle of her living room, still holding his tool bag, listening to the echo of her footsteps on hardwood floors. For a moment, he forgot what silence felt like. And for the first time in years, he didn't miss it. Malik set his tool bag down by the front door, but he didn't move farther in right away. The scent of garlic, butter, and something roasted floated out from the kitchen, curling around the jazz that played low from the corner speaker. The house, though modern and richly decorated, suddenly felt lived in, warmer, less like a mansion, and more like someone's actual home. He rubbed the rain from his arms and stepped out of his boots. "You sure about this?" he called toward the kitchen, unsure whether he meant the dinner or everything else. Maya's voice came back soft but sharp, like strings plucked in minor key. "You ask that like we signed a contract." She appeared a moment later, barefoot still, holding a bottle of red wine and two mismatched glasses. Her sweater had slipped slightly off one shoulder, revealing smooth skin and the delicate strap of her top. She moved like someone who didn't second-guess her body or her space. "You fix things. I feed people. It's a fair trade." Malik took the wine with a nod, poured for both of them. She gestured toward the kitchen island, where takeout boxes were already opened, and plated roast chicken, mashed sweet potatoes, grilled vegetables. Nothing pretentious, but everything smelled homemade, or at least handmade by someone who cared. They sat on opposite sides of the counter, plates between them, elbows occasionally brushing. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, it just was, like a rest between measures in a long, quiet song. Finally, Maya broke it. "So, are you always this tense, or is it just me?" Malik looked up mid-bite. "I don't usually eat in houses where the furniture costs more than my yearly income. Furniture's not what makes a house valuable," she said, spearing a carrot with her fork. "It's the company." He gave a short, skeptical laugh. "I'm not used to being the company." Maya sipped her wine. "You should be. You're good at it." Malik didn't answer, not right away. He focused on his food, but his shoulders eased, bit by bit, as the minutes passed. "So what's the deal with the piano?" he finally asked. "Why call me now? Why not have it tuned years ago?" She tilted her head, took another sip, then said quietly, "Because it's the last thing in this house that ever sounded honest, and I wasn't ready to hear it again." He nodded slowly. "You said something about a wedding dress." She smirked. "Yeah, I left it on the stairs. Right there," she pointed behind him, to a curved stairwell wrapped in iron railing. "My father wanted the wedding more than I did. My ex-fiancé wanted a photo op. And I wanted out." Malik looked at her carefully. "You ran?" "I stayed until I couldn't breathe. Then I walked, slowly, quietly, like I wasn't sure I deserved to leave." Her voice lowered, her gaze falling toward her wine glass. "I never touched the piano again. It reminded me of the one thing I controlled that day, choosing not to play." He didn't interrupt. He just let the story settle in the space between them. "And now?" he asked. "Now?" She looked up again, her eyes clearer. "I think I'm ready to hear something new." Malik sat back. "That's a hell of a thing to put on a guy who just tightens hammers and adjusts pitch." She smiled at him, not wide, not flirty, just sincere. "Maybe." Or maybe I just knew you'd get it. Ugh. He didn't have an answer for that, so he took a sip of wine and let the silence say the rest. After dinner, they moved to the living room. Maya curled up in the corner of the long cream-colored couch, knees pulled under her, glass still in hand. Malik sat on the opposite end, careful, uncertain. She watched him for a moment, then nodded toward the piano in the corner. You know it still sounds better when you're near it. He raised an eyebrow. That's because I tuned it. Still, she said, then leaned her head against the armrest. You ever wonder what people think when they see this? This? He echoed. You, me, sitting here like this. She gestured vaguely between them. Malik looked down, ran a thumb along the edge of his glass. Probably that I should know better. That's the polite version, she said quietly. He nodded. People talk. Let them, she said, voice firmer. They don't get a say in what feels real. Malik didn't answer. He just leaned forward, elbows on knees, staring at the floor for a long time. Finally, he said, I've worked my whole life to be respected, not noticed, not discussed, just trusted. You think being with me would undo that? I think it already is, he said. That stopped her. She sat up a little straighter. Do you regret coming tonight? No, he said instantly, then softer. But I don't know what it means. Maya studied him, her gaze calm, unwavering. It doesn't have to mean anything yet. He glanced over. That's a dangerous kind of freedom. It's the only kind I've got left. She set her glass down, stood, and walked toward the piano. Her fingers hovered over the keys, then slowly pressed a chord soft, hesitant. It rang through the room, low and lovely. Without looking back, she asked, Do you want to hear something new, Malik? He didn't speak, just stood and crossed the room, slowly, until he was beside her. She slid over on the bench, making space. The air between them was warm, taut, with something unspoken. She nodded toward the keys. Play with me. I told you I don't perform. I'm not asking for a performance, she said. Just a sound that belongs to us. Malik hesitated. His hands hovered over the ivory, and then, slowly, he played a note. Then another. She followed. It wasn't a song. Not yet. Just two people reaching into a silence that had waited far too long to be filled. And in that moment, between the chords, Malik Carter forgot the world outside. The doubts, the noise, the lines drawn in hushed whispers and unspoken rules. For once, he wasn't a man out of place. He was a sound someone had waited to hear. The morning sun spilled through the tall windows like warm honey, golden and unhurried, settling over the hardwood floors and velvet drapes of the Whitmore estate. Malik awoke on the leather couch, one arm tucked behind his head, the faint sound of birdsong mixing with the distant hum of sprinklers outside. His eyes blinked open slowly, and for a moment he had to remind himself where he was. The scent of fresh coffee wafted in from the kitchen. He sat up, rubbing the back of his neck, still fully clothed from the night before. His tool bag remained untouched near the door, and across the room, the piano sat closed, silent once more. But something had shifted in the air, in him. Mornin', Maya said softly from behind him. He turned. She stood at the kitchen entryway, holding two mugs. She wore a soft robe, tied loosely at the waist, her hair down, cascading over one shoulder. She didn't try to hide the way she looked, and Malik didn't pretend it didn't affect him. He swallowed, forced himself to meet her eyes. You didn't have to let me crash here, he said, standing. You didn't crash, she replied, handing him a mug. You stayed. There was a long pause. I almost left in the middle of the night, he admitted, voice low. Why didn't you? I don't know. Maybe because, for once, someone didn't expect me to leave. Maya sipped her coffee, watching him closely. You think too much. I have to, he said. Every step, every word, every look out there, I don't get to be reckless. She walked past him to the window, pulling the curtain slightly to the side. Outside, a black SUV rolled slowly down the driveway. Too late for that now, she murmured. He joined her at the window. A man in a navy suit stepped out of the vehicle, tall, with salt and pepper hair and the kind of posture that said he was used to being obeyed. Maya's expression tightened. Friend of yours? Malik asked carefully. Not exactly, she said. That's Roland Green, my father's senior advisor. If he's here, Then it means my father knows you were here last night. Malik stepped back. I should go. She didn't stop him, but she didn't agree either. Do you want to? No, he said. But I don't want trouble for you. Maya turned, her voice firm now. You think I don't know what kind of trouble I already live in, Malik? My father built this world on silence, on obedience. You think you being here is the danger? The danger is me finally deciding to make my own choices. The doorbell rang. They both froze. Malik exhaled slowly, set the coffee down, and headed for the door. Maya followed him, her bare feet nearly silent against the floor. When he opened it, Roland stood with both hands clasped in front of him, smiling the way politicians smile before they crush someone. Miss Whitmore, he said politely. Mr. Carter, you know who I am? Malik asked. Roland's smile didn't waver. We do a full background check on anyone who steps foot in this house. Malik's jaw tightened. That's supposed to scare me? It's supposed to inform you, Roland replied, then turned to Maya. Your father is concerned. There's been some talk, photos, neighbors asking questions. The board is already nervous after your decision to postpone the merger. Maya's expression hardened. I didn't postpone it. I canceled it. That's not your call to make. It's my name on the damn company, Roland. Yes, he said smoothly. And your father still owns controlling shares. Malik glanced between them, then said, I'll go. But Maya reached for his hand gently, publicly, deliberately. Stay. Roland's eyes dropped to their hands, and the smile faded just enough to betray his real thoughts. Very well, he said. But do remember, Miss Whitmore, appearances matter, especially when they threaten legacy. When he left, the silence he left behind was colder than before. Malik sat down slowly on the bottom step of the staircase. So this is what I walked into. Maya sat beside him. No, Malik, this is what I walked out of. He looked at her, searching. Is that why you left the wedding? Because your father was choosing your husband? She nodded. Because he was choosing my life. Malik rubbed his hands together, thoughtful. You still want to fight this? Maya leaned forward, elbows on her knees. I want to fight for something that's mine, something real. There was a beat of quiet. Then she said softly, I didn't just ask you to stay last night because I was lonely, Malik. I asked because I felt safe with you. His heart thudded once, hard. You don't know me. I know enough. Malik shook his head. You don't know what it's like to grow up with people crossing the street when they see you coming. To have to smile so they don't call you angry. To speak soft so they don't call you threatening. Her voice was barely a whisper now. And I don't know what it's like to have my own body used as leverage in a boardroom. Or to be told I'm too emotional to lead. Or to be paraded like a trophy for shareholders. Their eyes locked. And in that moment, the space between them wasn't about race, or class, or fear. It was about recognition, of pain, of courage, of the risk it took to be seen. Maya reached for his hand again, this time lacing her fingers through his. Maybe we don't have to win, but maybe we stop losing. He nodded slowly, breathing in her steadiness. What now? She stood and pulled him up with her. Now we rewrite the rules. He looked at her, this beautiful, defiant woman standing in silk and sunlight, declaring war not with fists, but with truth, and something inside him settled. The fight ahead would be brutal. He knew that. But maybe, for once, he wouldn't fight it alone. Malik stood in the hallway of his modest apartment later that afternoon, the door closing behind him with a soft thud that felt louder than it should. He dropped his keys on the counter and exhaled slowly, as if he had been holding his breath since he walked away from the Whitmore estate. His body still carried the warmth of Maya's hand in his, the echo of her words ringing in his mind like a drumbeat. Now we rewrite the rules. He wanted to believe it, needed to, but as he moved through the apartment threadbare couch, flickering kitchen light, the hum of the broken fridge that never stopped reality clawed at him. He was still a black man with calloused hands and a last name nobody in her world would speak without curled lips. He stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror, water running, and tried to convince himself that what he felt was hope and not fear. The knock came just as he reached for a towel. It was sharp, purposeful, governmental. He opened the door slowly. 2 men in dark suits stood outside, not police force, corporate security. The older one showed a badge, though it wasn't official law enforcement. Malik Carter? Who's asking? We'd like a word about Miss Maya Whitmore. He stepped into the hallway, not giving them permission to enter. She okay? That's what we're trying to ensure, the younger one replied. She's made some unorthodox decisions lately. Canceled a multi-million-dollar merger, delayed board meetings, moved money, and yesterday, she brought a civilian contractor into her home. Malik's shoulders tensed. That against the law now? No, the older man said calmly. But it raises questions. Ones her father would like answered before the press starts asking their own. Malik stared at him, reading between every line. Let me save you some time. I didn't sleep with her. I didn't steal from her. I didn't push her to cancel anything. If anything, I told her I didn't belong there. The older man nodded slightly. That's all we needed to hear. They left without another word, but the message was clear. He was being watched. That evening, he returned to work. The small repair shop where he logged hours fixing elevators, light fixtures, and anything else that needed hands most people didn't see. He kept his head down, stayed late, and didn't check his phone until nearly 10. 3 missed calls from Maya. He called back. Where are you? She asked, her voice low, tense. Work. You didn't tell me you were going back tonight. You didn't ask. A pause. They came to your place, didn't they? Yeah. I'm sorry. It's not your fault, he said, though part of him wasn't sure that was true. But it's not your fault, either. She was quiet for a beat. Then gently, I need you to come back. He sighed. Maya, please, just tonight. There's something I need to show you. He hesitated. Then finally, give me an hour. When he arrived at the estate, the house was darker than before. No lights on downstairs. The air was heavy, like something had shifted again. Maya met him at the door, barefoot in a simple shirt and jeans this time. No robe, no silk, no flirtation. Just her. Come with me, she said, leading him up the back stairs. He followed her through a narrow hallway he hadn't seen before, into what looked like a small library. Bookshelves lined the walls, but most were untouched. In the far corner sat a locked cabinet, old and rusted, with a single brass key already in the lock. Maya opened it. Inside were files, dozens of them, thick, bound, stamped with the family crest. My father's private archive, she said. I found it when I was 17. Took me years to understand what it really was. Malik stepped closer. He pulled one file out, opened it, and frowned. What is this? Records, transactions, payments, bribes, suppressed lawsuits, buyouts of families whose land he stole. He buried scandals before they could grow legs, paid off judges, silenced whistleblowers. She met his eyes. And it's all in my name. Malik looked down at the files again, blood running cold. Why show me this? Because I don't know who else to trust, she whispered. Because if something happens to me, someone needs to know the truth. His fists clenched. This is enough to bring him down. Maybe. But the board protects him. The media worships him. And the people in this town owe him their paychecks. Malik paced the room. Then we go bigger. We find someone who's not afraid to lose. Someone who cares more about justice than comfort. You know someone like that? He looked at her, voice steady. You do. She smiled softly, though her eyes were tired. Then you'll help me? He nodded. You're not alone, Maya. She reached for one of the folders, flipping it open. Then let's begin with the file labeled J. Carter. Malik froze. He took the folder from her hands and read the cover sheet. Jeremiah Carter. Your father? She nodded. Your uncle. One of the people my father ruined. And it wasn't just business. It was personal. The words landed like a gut punch. Malik sank into the armchair, folder in his lap, heart pounding. The past had never truly left him. But now, it had a name. And it was time to make it speak. The folder sat on Malik's lap like a loaded gun. The name printed across the top, Jeremiah Carter, looked back at him with cold, clinical finality. He hadn't spoken that name out loud in years. Not since the funeral. Not since they buried the man who had practically raised him after his parents were lost in a house fire when he was 6. His uncle, a soft-spoken Vietnam vet with oil-stained fingers and a spine of steel, had been the one man Malik thought was unbreakable. But he had been broken, silently, strategically. Malik flipped open the folder, his breath shallow as the weight of the years pressed down. The first document was a property seizure, a deed transfer signed under pressure. His uncle's signature looked uneven, rushed. Below it, a legal clause referencing failure to meet performance benchmarks. But Malik remembered. That year, Jeremiah's auto shop had made record profits. The numbers hadn't added up then. Now they did. "Your father stole his land," Malik said quietly. Maya stood near the window, her arms folded, her jaw tight, and pushed him into bankruptcy. 2 weeks after the shop was shut down, the same property was sold to Whitmore Technologies under a shell company. Dirt cheap. And that same month, your uncle was denied a VA loan to reopen elsewhere. Malik's eyes burned, but he didn't blink. "He never told me. Because men like your uncle, they die with their dignity intact, even when it's been stripped from them piece by piece." He leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. He started drinking after that. That's what took him. Liver failure. "No," Maya said softly. "What took him was betrayal. This family. My family." Silence wrapped around them like fog. Then Maya said, "I want to go public." Malik's eyes snapped to hers. "With all of this?" "Yes, but we can't just drop files online. My father has lawyers in every state. They'll bury it, twist it, make it look like I fabricated the evidence to sabotage the company. He'll say you're mentally unstable. He already has. That's why I need someone outside the storm. Someone no one expects." "You mean me," Malik said flatly. "You fix things, Malik. You see what's broken, and you fix it. That's why I trust you." He stood, pacing again. "This isn't a leaky garage light, Maya. This is war. Then fight it with me." He exhaled through his nose, heart heavy but pulse alive. "What's the plan?" She walked over to a smaller stack of folders on the table. "We start with the 3 weakest links in his Empire board members who've tried to push back in the past. If we get to them, we might flip one. And if they won't flip, then we find someone who will listen. Someone not bought. I still have contacts from my time at Stanford Law. Some of them owe me." He nodded. "And you'll stay here, in this house, with your father watching every move?" "No," she said, and a strange smile tugged at the corners of her lips. "I'm not staying. I've booked a cabin near Blue Ridge. Quiet, off-grid. You'll meet me there once we have what we need." Malik hesitated. "You sure running doesn't look like guilt?" "Sometimes retreat is strategy. Besides, I've already transferred some funds to a trust. It'll keep him chasing smoke while we build the fire." That night, Malik drove back home with the folder locked in a small toolbox in the back of his truck. His thoughts circled like vultures' memories of Jeremiah's laugh, his quiet pride, the way he never once blamed the world aloud. He remembered standing at his uncle's hospital bed and not knowing what to say. Now he knew. "You were right not to trust them, and I'm sorry I waited this long." 2 days later, Malik found himself in the back of a small diner in downtown Asheville, sitting across from an older black man in a tan suit and a silver tie pin shaped like a cross. Judge Delroy Benson had been retired for 6 years but still had ears in every hallway and contacts in every office that mattered. Malik slid the folder across the table. The judge read in silence. 10 minutes passed before he closed it with a sigh. "I knew your uncle," he said. "Good man. Never raised his voice, never missed church, never took more than he needed. Did you know what happened to him?" "I suspected. But knowing and proving are 2 different things. You got proof here. Will you help?" The judge studied Malik's face. "Son, this kind of truth? It doesn't just clean house, it burns the house down. You ready for that?" Malik didn't flinch. "I wasn't, but I am now." Benson nodded. "Then let's talk about your next move." As they spoke, Malik noticed 2 men across the street standing still beside a black car, watching, waiting. The war had begun. But this time, Malik wasn't fixing someone else's house. He was tearing down the one that stole his family's future. And for the first time in years, he wasn't doing it alone. Maya sat at the edge of the creaky bed inside the secluded Blue Ridge cabin, the kind with pinewood walls and a faint smell of sap that clung to everything. The kind of place you went when you wanted to disappear but not entirely forget who you were. She stared at the flickering light of the laptop screen, her finger hovering over the trackpad as she reviewed the encrypted files Malik had just sent. 3 names glowed back at her from the screen: Harold Kingsley, Deborah Miles, and Victor Chen, 3 board members of Whitmore Technologies, 3 former allies of her father until each of them, in subtle ways, tried to push for more ethical oversight and were quietly sidelined. She knew what had to be done. But even now, part of her stomach knotted at the thought of going against people she'd known since childhood. The chime of her burner phone cut through the silence. She picked it up. "Malik? It's done." His voice came through, low and firm. "Benson just confirmed he made contact with Kingsley. The man's nervous, but he's willing to talk, if we meet on his terms." "When?" "Tomorrow morning. 7. Old Foundry outside Charlotte." She closed the laptop. "I'll be there." The morning mist hung thick over the abandoned metal foundry. The place looked like something from another life, steel beams rising from cracked concrete, ivy crawling over rusted walls, and the echo of silence too deep to trust. Malik stood with his back to the old furnace room, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Maya arrived in a borrowed Ford Taurus, dressed in jeans and a weathered denim jacket. Nothing about her looked like the daughter of a billionaire. Kingsley appeared minutes later, stepping from a nondescript gray sedan. He was shorter than Malik remembered, hair grayer, eyes darting like a man always looking for the nearest exit. He didn't shake hands. He just spoke. "I don't have much time." Maya stepped forward. "Thank you for coming." "I'm not here for you," he replied, curt. "I'm here because Jeremiah Carter was a good man." That stunned her, Malik noticed. Kingsley went on. "Your father destroyed him. Not just him. Others, small business owners, veterans, even some of our own employees. When profit margins dipped, they were cut like cancer." Maya opened her folder. "Then help us expose him. We have enough data to start a fire. We just need someone from the inside to light the match." Kingsley hesitated, glancing at Malik. "And you? Why are you here?" Malik's jaw tensed. "Because he took everything from my uncle. And because you and I both know it won't stop unless someone fights back." Kingsley let out a bitter laugh. "You think one public scandal will bring down Whitmore? Your father has judges in his pocket, senators at his dinner table, and former CIA contractors guarding his secrets. We don't need to bring down the whole empire," Maya said. "Just crack the foundation. The rest will fall under its own weight." Kingsley rubbed his face, looked at the ground. "I'll get you what I can. Internal memos, communications between the shell corporations. But if you're smart, you'll vanish before this goes public." He turned to leave, then stopped. "And one more thing. Your father knows you've been digging. He's already taken steps. Watch your back." That night, Malik stood on the front porch of the cabin, arms resting on the railing, eyes on the tree line. Maya joined him silently, wrapping herself in a plaid blanket, her bare shoulders just visible under the fabric. "He looked scared," she said softly. "He is," Malik replied. "That's how you know he's telling the truth." A long silence. Then she whispered, "Do you think I'm selfish?" He turned. "For what? For waiting this long? For not speaking up when I first found the files 2 years ago?" "No," Malik said. "You're not selfish. You're human. You were raised in a house where truth was treated like poison. It takes time to learn how to drink it." Her eyes shimmered in the moonlight. "I don't know what comes after this." "You don't have to," he said. "You just have to take the next step." She looked at him then, something soft and grateful behind her gaze. And for the first time since this all began, Malik felt the war fade for just a moment, replaced by something gentler, something almost peaceful, until the sound of tires on gravel shattered it. Malik stepped forward instantly, hand brushing the small pistol hidden beneath his jacket. A black SUV pulled to a slow stop near the tree line, headlights off. Maya's breath hitched. "That's not one of ours." Malik narrowed his eyes. "Get inside. Now." She hesitated, but the edge in his voice made her move. The SUV sat idle for a few seconds longer. Then, slowly, it reversed and disappeared back down the mountain road. Malik exhaled, every nerve on fire. War, it seemed, wasn't coming. It was already here. The sun rose slowly over the tree-covered hills, casting amber light over the mist, still lingering around the cabin. Maya barely slept. Her mind kept replaying the moment the black SUV appeared and disappeared. Every sound outside during the night had her reaching for the phone, afraid it might be the moment her father decided to stop warning and start hunting. Malik was already awake, sitting at the dining table with a printed map spread in front of him, a mug of black coffee growing cold in his hand. He didn't look up when Maya stepped into the room, wrapped in a robe, her hair tied back loosely, eyes hollow from unrest. "They're scouting," he said, his voice low. That wasn't a threat. That was surveillance. They were seeing how fast we'd react, how prepared we are. Her throat felt dry. "So we don't have much time." "No," he said. "We don't." Maya sat down across from him, glancing at the map. There were circles marked in red drop-off points, data contacts, safe houses, but in the center of it all was a box drawn in black ink. "To the 20, Whitmore HQ. Kingsley just sent a batch of emails," Malik added, turning his laptop toward her. "Internal chains, time-stamped during the layoff rounds last year. Proof of manipulated numbers, forged projections, and worse than off-the-books fund used to discredit whistleblowers. That includes the man who sued your father in 2016. The case that mysteriously vanished." Maya scrolled through, breath-catching. Her father's voice echoed in her head. "Sometimes you have to destroy a few trees to build the forest." She was only a teenager then, but she remembered the coldness in his tone, and now she saw what he meant. "How do we release this?" she asked, barely above a whisper. "Not through the press. They'll crush the story before it hits air," Malik said. "We use someone your father can't control. Someone he's overlooked." Maya blinked. "Like who?" He turned his screen again, revealing a video clip from a local Charlotte talk radio show. A woman in her late 50s, black, glasses, hair in gray locks, spoke with fire in her voice. "This city deserves to know who's sitting in the shadows of our skyline, pulling strings while families suffer." Maya smiled slightly. "I remember her. Miss Gloria. She used to teach ethics at the community center when I was a kid. Then she's our way in." By noon, Malik and Maya were back on the road, headed toward the station. They kept the windows half down, not for the breeze, but to listen to stay aware. Malik's hands stayed at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, but his eyes never rested. They passed a familiar strip mall, a diner Maya used to visit with her father on Sunday mornings. It looked the same, but now, it felt like another lifetime. They parked 2 blocks from the station and walked the rest of the way on foot, blending in. When they entered, Gloria was in mid-broadcast. She spotted them through the glass partition and raised a brow. 20 minutes later, they were seated in her office. The moment the door clicked shut, she folded her arms. "Well now, if it isn't Maya Whitmore," Gloria said. "Didn't expect to see your face again. Last time I did, you were a bright-eyed teen telling me your daddy was going to change the world." "I was wrong," Maya said softly, "and I'm here to make it right." Malik slid the folder across the desk. "You're the only voice in this town people still trust. We need you to help us tell the truth." Gloria opened it, flipping through documents, printouts, and photos. Her mouth tightened as she read. "My God, it gets worse," Malik said. "There's a secondary offshore fund. We think it's being used to pay off local officials, maybe even judges. But we don't have access yet." Gloria looked up. "And what happens to you two if I run this?" Maya met her gaze. "We burn, but he falls with us." Gloria stared at her for a long beat, then slowly nodded. "Bring me everything. Full chain of evidence, names, faces, and I'll do what your father never had the guts to tell the whole damn truth." That night, back at the cabin, Maya sat alone on the porch while Malik ran perimeter checks. The sky above was pitch black, no stars visible through the heavy clouds. The air smelled like pine and something colder like a storm waiting for the right second to break loose. She pressed her hands together and whispered a prayer not for safety, but for courage. Inside, Malik returned to the table, checking his phone again. An anonymous number had sent a text. It simply read, "You have 48 hours. Walk away, or she bleeds." He didn't show it to Maya. Not yet. Instead, he stepped outside, sat next to her, and offered her a blanket. She looked up at him, surprised. "What is it?" she asked. He forced a smile. "Just thinking." "About?" He hesitated, then said, "How sometimes doing the right thing feels like walking into the dark with no light, but you still walk, because there's someone behind you who'll need that path clear." She reached over and took his hand. "I don't know what's going to happen next," she said. "I do," he replied quietly. "We tell the truth, and we survive it, together." and as thunder rolled faintly in the distance, they sat in silence, two people bracing for the storm they had chosen to start. The storm came just before dawn. Lightning arced across the North Carolina sky, the wind howling through the trees like a warning long overdue. Rain hammered the cabin's roof as if the heavens were trying to punch through. Maya stood in the living room, barefoot, arms folded tight over her chest. Her robe clung to her damp skin from stepping out onto the porch seconds earlier. Her breath came fast. "Malik," she whispered. "They're here." He was already up, already dressed in jeans and a dark sweatshirt. He looked out the side window. Headlights flashed through the woods, cutting sharp across the trees like searchlights. 3 SUVs. Same make. Same blacked-out plates. No hesitation this time. Malik stepped close to Maya, taking her by the shoulders. "Get your phone. Grab the drive. If I say run, you run. No looking back." Her voice cracked. "Malik. Number. We knew it might end like this." He turned, pulled open the kitchen drawer, and revealed a matte black pistol. Maya's eyes widened, not with fear but realization. This wasn't just about exposing secrets. It was about surviving them. Outside, the vehicles stopped 20 yards from the cabin. 4 men stepped out of the lead SUV, slick suits, earpieces, and grim expressions. They didn't shout. They didn't knock. One of them simply raised a sledgehammer and walked toward the front door. But before the first blow landed, the radio inside the cabin came to life. It was Gloria. Her voice rang out strong, broadcast on every local frequency. "This morning, I speak directly to the people of Charlotte. You know the Whitmore name. Some of you have worked for it. Others have been fired by it. What you don't know is what that name has cost us all." Maya gasped. She went live. Malik smiled, a flash of pride and adrenaline. "She's burning the bridge." The men outside paused. One touched his earpiece, clearly receiving word from someone far above. Then the front door burst open. Malik stepped forward, gun raised but not fired. "Stop right there," he commanded. "This is private property." The lead man raised his badge federal seal, though Malik knew better than to trust its authenticity. "We're taking the girl. You don't want to make this worse." "She's a whistleblower," Malik replied calmly. "Protected under federal statute. You lay one hand on her, and you'll answer for it." The man tilted his head. "Who are you to make that call?" "I'm the man who trained half your task force," Malik said, voice like steel. "Delta Force, retired. But I remember every damn protocol, and I know when a badge is being used to silence truth." They hesitated. Malik's stance never wavered. And then sudden from the woods came headlights. Multiple sets. Dusty pickup trucks. Old Jeeps. Motorcycles. Within minutes, the driveway was filled with Peopla neighbors, old co-workers, community volunteers. Many of them had heard Gloria's broadcast and knew Maya's name. One man stepped forward, African-American, grizzled beard, Vietnam vet cap. He looked at the federal agent and simply said, "You best leave her alone." The tension cracked. The agents looked at each other. Outnumbered, exposed, outed. The lead man lowered his hand, then turned. "Fall back." Just like that, they left. 2 hours later, the cabin was quiet again, but nothing would ever be the same. Gloria's broadcast had gone viral, recorded, shared, replayed across the country. The documents Maya provided were published online, validated by whistleblower protection organizations. Civil suits began piling up within days. By week's end, news anchors were calling for federal investigations. The Whitmore empire was no longer untouchable. But the victory felt strange. Maya sat on the porch, her eyes tracking the sunrise now peeking over the trees. Malik brought her coffee, sat beside her, the silence thick with unspoken truths. "I thought I'd feel relief," she murmured. "I thought justice would feel clean." He nodded slowly. "Justice is rarely clean. It's not a parade. It's a reckoning." She turned to him, studying his face. "Why did you stay? When it got dangerous?" His gaze softened. "Because you didn't run, and because you looked at me like I was more than just a man with a past." She reached for his hand, squeezed it. "You are." For a long moment they sat still. No media, no threats, just the sound of wind brushing through the trees, like a breath being released after holding for too long. Weeks later, Maya stood outside the courtroom. She didn't speak during the trial, The lawyers had her words already, the recordings, the documents. But when the verdict came, she was there in a navy dress, hair neatly pulled back, and a single chain around her neck holding a locket from her late mother. Her father was found guilty on 5 counts of fraud, 2 of conspiracy, and 1 of witness tampering. He never looked at her once, but Malik did from the back row. He watched her walk out of that courtroom not as a broken daughter, but as a woman who'd faced down legacy, power, and fear and chose the truth anyway. And as she stepped into the sunlight, the reporters crowding around her, Maya simply lifted one hand and said, "Justice doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it comes with silence and survival." Behind her, Malik smiled. The storm was over. For now. But together they had walked through it, and neither one would ever walk alone again.